Peace, family. Y'all know who it is. It's Bakari Lumumba, back once again at regenerativelumumbaspeaks.com, a Black empowerment initiative where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black. Back with another video, but before we get started, make sure you hit the subscribe and the like button as well as the notification bell. Share this video with all your friends and of course well-wishers. So we're back at it once again where we're celebrating and remembering the life of one Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, born 104 years ago today, July 18th, 1918, in what is now known as, of course, the country of South Africa. So want to just take some time to honor the memory of one Nelson Mandela. Many people have a litany of views on Nelson Mandela in terms of who he was when he got out of prison after, of course, spending 27 years in prison. But we're going to get into all of that. But I think we need to, honor and respect this brother. He's an ancestor now, so we definitely want to show love to him and honor him. One, he was a lifelong anti-apartheid activist. So those of you who may not be aware what apartheid is in South Africa, that is the South African equivalent of Jim Crowism here in America. So we're talking about legalized segregation and all aspects of human activity. Number two, he was an advocate, of course, of self-determination for African people. He believed in the political right for us to govern ourselves. But he also believed in the right of African people to restore ourselves to our traditional greatness as a free, proud, and of course, prosperous people, productive people. Also, many people may not be aware, but he was actually a lawyer, right? He went to law school, he was an attorney, he also was a boxer. So you know, of course, he's got to get some love from me because, of course, I am a fan of the Squared Circle. But with that being said, I think there's a number of things I want to mention. But first and foremost, you can't mention Nelson Mandela without mentioning Winnie Mandela. So definitely want to show love to her. I share a birthday with the Queen Mother, so we're going to do a video on her when her birthday comes up. Because I believe the greatest and most committed people in the African world, at home and abroad, were born on September 26th. That's just an innocent plug, right? But when we talk about the man Nelson Mandela, who lived to be 95 years old, many people, of course, speak ill of the decisions he made after, of course, being released from prison. And we all know that no man walks out of prison after 27 years and becomes president of a country unless there's a script and a plan in the background to create the farce that South Africa had became a multi-racial utopia where there was going to be an actual democracy. We know that F.W. de Klerk stated during the negotiations to dismantle the apartheid system that he said, we will not negotiate ourselves out of power. I think that is something very important that Black people, that we have to understand, that what we're fighting for is power. We know Dr. Amos Wilson, in his seminal text, Blueprint for Black Power, he discusses that the myriad of issues that African people face is due to our collective powerlessness, right? And I argue everywhere that I go, anytime I have a chance to speak or share my voice to, I believe how we can work towards solving some of the issues that we face as African people at home and abroad. That the goal, I tell people, if this isn't your Bible, if this isn't your Quran, if this isn't your Kimber Nagas or your Torah, your Pentateuch, you're playing games and you're wasting time. Because the reality is the issues that we face are rooted in our collective political, social, economic, and of course military powerlessness. So with that being said, many people feel that he placated the power structure, right? There was a push that they would nationalize the economies, right? And have a socialist type government, similar to what we have in China, but capitalism would still be able to have some type of role in, of course, developing these society, particularly economically. But he didn't do so, right? And many people felt that, the white people in South Africa, the Oppenheimers and the De Beers, who were sucking the lifeblood of our people, and of course, extracting the mineral wealth from the land, and they were able to benefit from it rather than our brothers and sisters on the continent. That there needed to be some penance paid, or of course, what we would call restitution done, of course, to our brothers and sisters in South Africa, and that didn't take place. And of course, many people were hurt by that, disappointed to say the least. Also, we know that after Mandela's release, he created the Truth and Reconciliation Commission when he became president. And many people were disappointed that at least at some point we have a Black president. Like many people thought, of course, in America, that white people would be held accountable for the crimes, like not only against African people, but of course the act of war that late great Dr. Khalid Muhammad called it, but also that at some point the crimes against humanity that they committed, they would be held accountable for. That didn't happen. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission that took place, that was, of course, part of the Mandela administration, simply allowed them to do what? Come, spill the beans about what they did, and they will be given a reprieve from, of course, being prosecuted and of course, held accountable for the actions. So that left a lot to be desired. But there's a couple of things I want to touch on. And of course, that is the man that he was before he went to prison. Someone who had engaged in radical political activism, particularly in the underground sector, but even above ground. And as we all know, he was found guilty and sentenced to serve a life sentence that turned into a 27-year sentence in Robben Island. So we're talking about someone who was willing to make the ultimate sacrifice, someone who knew that the work that he was doing would cause him to, unfortunately, most likely, spend the rest of his life in prison, right? And so anyone who's willing to have that type of commitment for truth, for justice, for the right for self-determination, the right for African agency, we have to show some love and respect and remember him because he is one of our great ancestors now. Also, I think it's very important that when we talk about Winnie Mandela, and I've been able to read a bit on Mandela, that Winnie Mandela's parents did not want her to marry him. Of course, we know that he was older than her by maybe, I think, about 2 decades. But the other issue was the fact that they knew who he was, they knew his reputation, and there was a belief that he would politicize her, radicalize her. And it was true. And so that was an issue as well. Of course, we know that their marriage struggled after he was imprisoned. But we can't mention Nelson Mandela without mentioning Winnie Mandela. I think that is extremely important. And then, of course, last but not least, even though people feel that he placated, and I would argue that he did, I want to honor the man that he was when he went in, not the man that he was when he came out, because I don't know if anyone would have the wherewithal to be that strong after spending nearly 3 decades in prison. We all say that we are. We all say that we could do it. We hear people all the time talk about, well, if I was back doing slavery, they wouldn't have did X, Y, Z to me. That's easy to play Monday morning quarterback, right? But we don't know what we would have done in those situations centuries ago when the conditions that we lived under were extremely different. So I think it's very important that we show respect, to them. And of course, we want to honor that moral responsibility to remember, because as we all know, Fannie Lou Hamer taught us to never forget where we come from and always praise the bridges that carried us over. But last but not least, I also want to call in 1990, shortly after Mandela was released. I believe he was about 72 years old. He took a trip to New York City, his first visit to America. And he had like an hour-long television broadcast on ABC. I actually recall watching this as a child, in which he held court and asked questions from reporters. And one reporter asked him, you have been very vocal about your push for human rights in South Africa. He said, but you've aligned yourself with individuals that we believe have a very unbecoming record on human rights. He mentioned, of course, the president of Palestine, Yasser Arafat, Colonel Gaddafi, who, of course, was the leader of Libya, and, of course, even Fidel Castro, who, of course, was the leader in Cuba. And Nelson Mandela said that one of the mistakes that many political commenters make is to make the assumption that their enemies should be our enemies. And of course, the crowd applauded and spoke to what Nelson Mandela went further on to say, that we are our own people, we have our independent struggle, we are an independent organization, we would think for ourselves. I think that is something that's very important, that we as African people have to think for ourselves, not have a myopic view of the world, and not have what W.B. Du Bois, the term that W.B. Du Bois coined more than 100 years ago, more than a century ago, double consciousness, in which we're viewing the world through the eyes of someone else. This is something we have to make sure that we are moving away from. But he went on to say that they support our struggle. He's talking about Gaddafi, Arafat, and of course Castro, to the hilt. He says they support our struggle in more ways than simply rhetoric. They provide food, they provide money, they provide resources in our struggle to dismantle the oppressive and debilitating system known as apartheid. And so he really was even pushing up against the United States, saying, hey, they help us in more ways than just rhetoric. You all just talk a good game. They're actually about that life. They're actually putting boots on the ground, soldiers in the field, providing actual resources, rather than just saying, hey, what you're doing is wrong, but then taking a hands-off approach, an isolationist approach. As we know that during the Reagan administration, they even sent electric cattle prods to the apartheid government to help them so-called get the black problem under control. So definitely want to show love for Nelson Mandela there. And as you know, of course, being an educator, we always want to leave you with some homework. And so I would behoove all of you to, if you get a chance, take a look at Nelson Mandela's autobiography. Read his autobiography entitled A Long Road to Freedom, the autobiography of Nelson Mandela. Great read. I've read it many years ago. I might even, peruse it today just in honor of celebrating and, of course, emanating his spirit in my home. So, Long Road to Freedom, the autobiography of Nelson Mandela. That's all I have. Just want to make sure that I took some time out of the day to honor our great ancestor, one Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. Until next time, you all know what to do. Peace.